Hello, everyone. I am Scott Ferguson. I'm going to read to you today. I have Dickens again. It doesn't hurt like the. This book, it's got to hang in there just a little while longer. I'm back with this Falling Apart book from 1884, and this is not a story. This is what I would call an essay, and it is called Bed. B as in boy, D as in dog, bed. One of the great topics, one of the great structures available in our world. Bed. I really appreciate Charles Dickens writing about such an important topic. Okay, one quick note here before I start. As I go along, I am probably going to be setting pages aside because they are indeed falling out of this book. So I beg your pardon if I have to make a move in putting a page down. Bed starts off with a quote. "Oh, sleep, it is a gentle thing, beloved from pole to pole," was the heart's cry of the ancient mariner at the recollection of the blessed moment when the fearful curse of life and death fell off him, and the heavenly sleep first slid into his soul. "Blessings on sleep," said honest Sancho Panza. "It wraps one all around like a mantle." A mantle for the weary human frame, lined softly as with the down of the eider duck, and redolent of the soothing odors of the poppy. The fabled cave of sleep was in the land of darkness. No ray of the sun or moon or stars ever broke upon that night without a dawn. The breath of somniferous flowers floated in on the still air from the grotto's mouth. Black curtains hung round the ever-sleeping god. The dreams stood around his couch. Silence kept watch at the portals. Take the winged dreams from the picture, and what is left? The sleep of matter. The dreams that come floating through our sleep and fill the dormitory with visions of love or terror, what are they? Random freaks of the fancy? Or is sleep but one long dream, of which we see only fragments and remember still less? Who shall explain the mystery of that loosening of the soul and body, of which night after night whispers to us, but which day after day is unthought of? Reverie, sleep, trance, such are the stages between the world of man and the world of spirits. Dreaming but deepens as we advance. Reverie deepens into the dreams of sleep, sleep into trance, trance borders on death. As the soul retires from the outer senses, as it escapes from the trammels of the flesh, it lives with increased power within. Spirit grows more spirit-like as matter slumbers. We can follow the development up to the last stage. What is beyond? Quote, and in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, end quote, says Hamlet, pausing on the brink of eternity and vainly striving to scan the inscrutable. Trance is an awful counterpart of sleep and death, mysterious in itself, appalling in its hazards. Day after day, noise has been hushed in the dormitory. Month after month, it has seen a human frame grow weaker and weaker, wanner, more deathlike, till the hues of the grave colored the face of the living. And now he lies motionless, pulseless, breathless. It is not sleep. Is it death? Leigh Hunt is said to have perpetrated a very bad pun connected with the dormitory, and which made Charles Lamb laugh immoderately. Going home together late one night, the latter repeated the well-known proverb, "A home's a home, however homely." "Ay," added Hunt, "and a bed's a bed, however bedly." It is a strange thing, a bed. Somebody has called it a bundle of paradoxes. We go to it reluctantly and leave it with regret. Once within the downy precincts of the four posts, how loath we are to make our exodus into the wilderness of life. We are as enamored of our curtained dwelling as if it were the land of Goshen or the cave of Circe. And how many fervent vows have those dumb posts heard broken, every fresh perjury rising to join its cloud of hovering fellows, each morning weighing heavier and heavier on our sluggard eyelids. A caustic proverb says, "We are all good risers at night, but woe's me for our agility in the morning." It is a failing of our species, ever ready to break out in all of us, and in some only vanquished after a struggle painful as the sundering of bone and marrow. The great Frederick of Prussia found it easier in after life to rout the French and Austrians than in youth to resist the seductions of sleep. After many single-handed attempts at reformation, he had at last to call to his assistance an old domestic whom he charged, on pain of dismissal, to pull him out of bed every morning at 2 o'clock. The plan succeeded as it deserved to succeed. All men of action are impressed with the importance of early rising. When you begin to turn in bed, it's time to turn out, says the old Duke, and we believe his practice has been in accordance with his precept. Literary men, among whom, as Bulwer says, a certain indolence seems almost constitutional, are not so clear upon this point. They are divided between night and morning, though the best authorities seem in favor of the latter. Early rising is the best elixir vitae. It is the only lengthener of life that man has ever devised. By its aid, the great Buffon was able to spend half a century, an ordinary lifetime, at his desk, and yet had time to be the most modish of all the philosophers who then graced the gay metropolis of France. Sleep is a treasure and a pleasure, and as you love it, guard it warily. Overindulgence is ever suicidal and destroys the pleasure it means to gratify. The natural times for our lying down and rising up are plain enough. Nature teaches us, and unsophisticated mankind followed her. Singing birds and opening flowers hail the sunrise, and the hush of groves and the closed eyelids of the parterre mark his setting. But man hath sought out many inventions. We prolong our days into the depths of night, and our nights into the splendor of day. It is a strange result of civilization. It is not merely occasioned by that thirst for varied amusement which characterizes an advanced stage of society. It is not that theaters, balls, dancing, masquerades require an artificial light, for all these are or have been equally enjoyed elsewhere beneath the eye of day. What is the cause? We really are not philosopher enough to say. But the prevalence of the habit must have given no little pungency to honest Benjamin Franklin's joke when, one summer, he announced to the Parisians as a great discovery that the sun rose each morning at 4 o'clock, and that whereas they burnt no end of candles by sitting up at night, they might rise in the morning and have light for nothing. Franklin's discovery, we dare say, produced a laugh at the time, and things went on as before. Indeed, so universal is this artificial division of day and night, and so interwoven with it are the social habits, that we shudder at the very idea of returning to the natural order of things. A Robespierre could not carry through so stupendous a revolution. Nothing less than an avatar of Siva the Destroyer, Siva with his 100 arms, turning off as many gas pipes and replenishing his necklace of human skulls by decapitating the leading conservatives, could have any chance of success, and 10 to 1 with our gassy splendors and seducing glitter, we should convert that pagan devil ere half his work was done. But of all the inventions which perverse ingenuity has sought out, the most incongruous, the most heretical against both nature and art, is reading in bed. Turning rest into labor, learning into ridicule. A man had better be up. He is spoiling the two most excellent things by attempting to join them. Study and sleep, how incongruous. It is an idle coupling of opposites and shocks a sensible man as much as if he were to meet in the woods the apparition of a winged elephant. Only fancy an elderly or middle-aged man, for youth is generally orthodox on this point, sitting up in bed, spectacles on his nose, a Kilmarnock on his head, and his flannel jacket round his shivering shoulders, doing what? Reading? It may be so, but he winks so often, possibly from the glare of the candle, and the glasses now and then slip so far down on his nose, and his hand now and then holds the volume so unsteadily, that if he himself didn't assure us to the contrary, we should suppose him half asleep. We are sure it must be a great relief to him when the neglected book at last tumbles out of bed to such a distance that he cannot recover it. Nevertheless, we have heard this extraordinary custom excused on the no less extraordinary ground of its being a soporific. For those who require such things, Marriott gives a much simpler recipe, namely to mentally repeat any scraps of poetry you can recollect. If your own, so much the better. The monks of old, in a similar emergency, used to repeat the 7 penitential psalms. Either of these plans, we doubt not, will be found equally efficacious if one is able to use them, if anxiety of mind does not divert him from his task, or the lassitude of illness disable him for attempting it. Sleep, alas, it is at times fickle and coy, and like most sublunary friends, forsakes us when most wanted. Reading in that repertory of many curious things, the Book of the Farm, we one day met with the statement that a pillow of hops will ensure sleep to a patient in a delirious fever when every other expedient fails. We made a note of it. Heaven forbid that the recipe should ever be needed for us or ours. But the words struck a chord of sympathy in our heart with such poor sufferers, and we saddened with the dread of that awful visitation. The fever of delirium, when incoherent words wander on the lips of genius, when the sufferer stares strangely and vacantly on his ministering friends, or starts with freezing horror from the arms of familiar love. Ah, what a dread tenant has the dormitory then! No food taken for the body, no sleep for the brain, a human being surging with diabolic strength against his keepers, a human frame gifted with superhuman vigor, only the more rapidly to destroy itself. Less fearful to the eye, but more harrowing to the soul, is the dormitory whose walls enclose the sleepless victim of remorse. No poppies or mandragora for him. His malady ends only with the fever of life. Ends? Grief, anxiety, the 1,000 several ills that flesh is heir to, pass away before the lapse of time or the soothings of love, and sleep once more folds its dove-like wings above the couch. If there be a regal solitude, says Charles Lamb, it is a bed. How the patient lords it there! What caprices he acts without control! How king-like he sways his pillow, tumbling and tossing and shifting and lowering and thumping and flatting and molding it to the ever-varying requisitions of his throbbing temples. He changes sides oftener than a politician. Now he lies full length, then half length, obliquely, transversely, head and feet quite across the bed, and none accuses him of tergiversation. Excuse me, tergiversation. Within the 4 curtains, he is absolute. They are his mare clausum, how sickness enlarges the dimensions of a man's self to himself. He is his own exclusive object. Supreme selfishness is inculcated on him as his only duty. 'Tis the 2 tables of the law to him. He has nothing to think of but how to get well. What passes out of doors or within them, so he hear not the jarring of them, affects him not. In this climate, a sight of the sun is prized, but we love to see it most from bed. A dormitory fronting the east, therefore, so that the early sunbeams may rouse us to the dewy beauties of morning, we love. Let there also be festooned roses without the window, that on opening it the perfume may pervade the realms of bed. Our night bower should be simple, neat as a fairy's cell, and ever perfumed with the sweet air of heaven. It is not a place for showy things or costly. As fire is the presiding genius in other rooms, so let water, symbol of purity, be in the ascendant here. Water fresh and unturbid as the thoughts that here make their home. Water to wash away the dust and sweat of a weary world. Let no fracas disturb the quiet of the dormitory. We go there for repose. Our tasks and our cares are left outside, only to be put on again with our hat and shoes in the morning. It is an asylum from the bustle of life. It is the inner shrine of our household gods, and should be respected accordingly. We never entered during the ordinary process of bed making, pillows tossed here, blankets and sheets pitched hither and thither in wildest confusion, chairs and pitchers in the middle of the floor, feathers and dust everywhere, without a jarring sense that sacrilege was going on, and that the genius loci had departed. Rude hands were profaning the home of our slumbers. A sense of security pervades the dormitory. A healthy man in bed is free from everything but dreams, and once in a lifetime, or after adjudging the cheese premium at an agricultural show, the nightmare. We once heard a worthy gentleman, blessed with a very large family of daughters, declare he had no peace in his house except in bed. There we feel as if in a city of refuge, secure alike from the brawls of earth and the storms of heaven. Lightning, say old ladies, won't come through blankets. Even tigers, says Humboldt, will not attack a man in his hammock. Hitting a man when he's down is stigmatized as villainous all the world over, and lions will rather sit with an empty stomach for hours than touch a man before he awakes. Tricks upon a sleeper, oh villainous! Every perpetrator of such unutterable treachery should be put beyond the pale of society. The 1st of April should have no place in the calendar of the dormitory. We would have the maxim, "Let sleeping dogs lie," extended to the human race. And an angry dog certainly is a man roused needlessly from his slumbers. What an outcry we Northmen raised against the introduction of Greenwich time, which defrauded us of 15 minutes' sleep in the morning, and how indiscriminate the objurgations lavished upon printers' devils. Of all sinners against the nocturnal comfort of literary men, these imps are the foremost, and possibly it was from their malpractices in such matters that they first acquired their diabolic cognomen. The nightcap is not an elegant headdress, but its comfort is undeniable. It is a diadem of night, And what tranquility follows our self-coronation! It is priceless as the invisible cap of Fortunatus, and, viewless beneath its folds, our cares cannot find us out. It is graceless. Well, what then? It is not meant for the garish eye of day, nor for the quizzing glass of our fellow men, or of the ridiculing race of women. Neither does it outrage any taste for the beautiful in the happy sleeper himself. We speak as bachelors, to whom the pleasures of a manifold existence are unknown. Possibly the aesthetics of night are not uncared for when a man has another self to please, and when a pair of lovely eyes are fixed admiringly on his upper story. But such is the selfishness of human nature that we suspect this abnegation of comfort will not long survive the honeymoon. The French, ever enamored of effect, and who, we verily believe, even sleep, posé, sometimes substitute the many-colored silken handkerchief for the graceless bonne de nuit. But all such substitutes are less comfortable and more troublesome. And of all irritating things, the most irritable is a complex operation in undressing. Aesthetics at night, and for the weary? No, no. The weary man frets at every extra button or superfluous knot. He counts impatiently every second that keeps him from his couch, and flies to the arms of sleep as to those of his mistress. Nevertheless, French novelette writers make a great outcry against nightcaps. We remember an instance. A husband, rather a good-looking fellow, suspects that his wife is beginning to have too tender thoughts toward a glossy, ringleted Lothario who is then staying with them. So, having accidentally discovered that Lothario slept in a huge peaked night cowl, and knowing that ridicule would prove the most effectual disenchanter, he fastened a string to his guest's bell and passed it into his own room. At the dead of night, when all were fast asleep, suddenly Lothario's bell rang furiously. Up started the lady. Their guest must be ill. And, accompanied by her husband, elegantly coiffed in a turbaned silk handkerchief, she entered the room whence the alarum had sounded. They find Lothario sitting up in bed, his cowl rising pyramid fashion, a fool's cap, all but the bells, bewildered and in ludicrous consternation at being surprised thus by the fair Angelica. And, unable to conceal his chagrin, he completes his discomfiture by bursting out in wrathful abuse of his laughing host for so betraying his weakness for nightcaps. Poetry of the dormitory. It is an inviting but too delicate a subject for our rough hands. Do not the very words call up a vision? By the light of the stars, we see a lovely head resting on a downy pillow. The bloom of the rose is on that young cheek, and the half-parted lips murmur as in a dream, "Edward." Love is lying light at her heart, but its fairy wand is showing her visions. May her dreams be happy. Edward. Was it a sigh that followed that gentle invocation? What would the youth give to hear that murmur? To gaze like yonder stars on his slumbering love. Hush! Are the morning stars singing together? A lullaby to soothe the dreamer? A low, dulcet strain floats in through the window, and soon, mingling with the breathings of the lute, the voice of youth. The harmony penetrates through the slumbering senses to the dreamer's heart, and ere the golden curls are lifted from the pillow, she is conscious of all. The serenade begins anew. What does she hear? Stars of the summer night, far in you azure deeps, hide, hide your golden light. She sleeps, my lady sleeps, sleeps. Dreams of the summer night tell her lover keeps watch, while in slumber's light she sleeps. My lady sleeps, sleeps. And with that poem ends Bed by Mr. Charles Dickens, published in this crumbling volume from 1884. And with that, I thank you very much for watching and for listening.